So for those of you who are interested in the first edition release, I did review that on my channel back. For those of you who are interested in the first edition of this figure, feel free to check out my review for that. It's a bit on the more primitive side if you guys are interested. It's in the suggestion tab up above. Alright, so here we have it. This is the reissue of the 1994 SH MonsterArts Godzilla. And this was one of the first, if not the only case where the reissue didn't include the accessory that the first edition had, and yeah, it caused some confusion, but there were some adjustments they made to this one that sets it apart from the original release, and I will do a direct comparison, but let's get to the articulation first for this guy. So if you manage to pick up this reissue, you're pretty much getting the same articulation that the original release had. It's still a bit on the stiff side. The arms do come out quite a bit. I do notice mine is a bit more forgiving in terms of the arms and how much I can move them. However, I don't like to stress the joints too much considering this is an older release and I'm not sure exactly how fragile they can be. One thing I will note is that I noticed that I have a lot more movement in the head area. So I'm able to get Godzilla to look up quite a bit and a bit more down. There. Articulation on the mouth is the same as usual. It's on that ball joint, so you can get Godzilla to kind of have that derp mouth if you so. Yeah, I hate that shit. But hey, they kind of fixed it. It doesn't have as much as an underbite as the original did. I do appreciate that, at least from what I notice. The waist can't really get too much unless you stress the joints. There's not really a lot going on there. In terms of the wrist, same story, more or less the same. You can rotate, you can kind of move them a little bit, but not too much. And oh boy, I hate this one. Check this out. Yep, that ball joint is the biggest pain in the ass that I've had in this line since. And it has not gotten any better. It's I don't know what the problem is, but it is such a damn headache to get this thing back on. And it's like, it doesn't pop back in, and it just, what a pain in the ass. That's the slightest touch, and it will go flying off. Anyways, I'm going to try to get that back on there for the rest of the review. If it falls off one more time, we're going to do the review with one hand off, one hand on. Alright, in terms of the legs, you do get a bit of movement there, but it's very, very restrictive, as it was with the original release because of the sculpt here. It just kind of stops it right there in its tracks, so you're not really going to get any backwards movement from that leg, and you're barely going to get any forward movement. It's really tight, just like the original release. So yeah, I mean, these are issues that they rectified with the Rebirth 1995 edition of Godzilla and for future releases, so that's not that big a deal. Bend at the knee, very slight, very, very loud. Oh boy. Ankle, you get a little bit on the foot, not too much of a pivot. You can get quite a little bit, but it's not like it's necessary really. Move it up and down. The hand fell off again. The tail is great though. It does have all those ball joints in there up until the very last piece here. I think it's around this area where it just stops, and it's one solid piece, which is absolutely okay. No problems with the tail. I haven't had any issues with them popping off. Then again, I don't stress it too much, but overall, it's a very flexible tail. Now, you can't get it to do a really full curve like the more recent releases have, because of the harder plastic that they used for this figure. The softer plastic, they're able to get more flexibility out of it, but since this was one of the first releases, it was definitely harder plastic. So yeah, you couldn't really get too much articulation out of the tail, but you get a decent amount. And what's cool is you can get Godzilla to be in a nice swimming pose, you know? But hey, if that's what you want to do, by all means do it. Oh, the head. One key difference between the reissue and the original release, at least from my figures here is that with the original release, he's a bit more stiff here up in the neck, especially around the head. I'm not able to really I could get him to look up a bit, but what the problem here is that because of the joint, I can't really get him to look straight once I push his neck back. So he's kind of looking up at an angle, while with the reissue, I'm able to have a little bit more articulation, with the only downside being that gap there, that noticeable gap in the back of the head. However, when I lean his neck back, I can get the head to look forward pretty straight on. So, I mean, from the side it looks weird, especially from the gap, but you know, all you need to do is just mess around with it a little bit, and you get some good shit out of that. Now, in terms of the paint and the sculpt and the design of the figure, I think it's great. I do feel that they should definitely revisit this and re-release it with some updated articulation so that people have a more accurate 1994-90s Heisei Godzilla, as opposed to having to resort to the 1995 Rebirth, which is actually Junior, or the burning Godzilla suit without the lights. Yeah, anyways, I'm getting off tangent here, but I do love the sculpt here. Lots of beautiful, meticulous detail into the skin and the scales of Godzilla. Really nicely done. He looks buff, he looks beautiful, absolutely thick, but not too thick. He has the right proportions, and I love the face. Very menacing looking. The teeth are alright. They're a bit haphazard, but honestly, considering what the line has to deal with nowadays, I must say that it's still better than some of the more recent releases, so I'm not going to argue on that. The eyes, however, the eyes are the big thing here. They reissued this because the original release had the derpy eye syndrome. So with the original release, it looks fine in low lighting. However, when you bring up the brightness and take a flashlight to him, you can already see the problem here. And a lot of people had this issue with the first release of this Godzilla. And I'll be honest with you, Tamashii still has problems with this till this day. With the reissue, they kind of fixed it actually, and as you can see here, it doesn't look as bad as the original release. This is the biggest selling point for this reissue. However, once again, your mileage will vary. I have seen reissues that have the same derpy eye syndrome that the first edition had, so kind of defeats the purpose. So yeah, anyways, the claws, they have a nice off-white, bone-ish color to them, and they lead into their black gradient without much of an issue on the feet, especially. Looks pretty nice, not too much paint slop there. On the actual spines and dorsal fins of Godzilla, whoo boy, they did a really nice job. I love that smoky looking gray that they went with, and the base of them are a nice dark grayish black. That charcoal black, by the way, carries on to the rest of the figure with the skin of Godzilla, and I must say it is beautiful. The tail, nicely sculpted. I can't really say much more about this figure that you haven't heard already in my first review, but I will say this. If you are planning on getting this guy, I definitely suggest you ask the seller, whoever you get it from, to take a picture from the front of it, because you may be unlucky and have the same issue that the first edition had with the derpy eyes. Now, in terms of accessories, well, this guy doesn't have any. This is the reissue, so they made it quite clear on the packaging that he does not include the original blue beam effect or base. So he's a standalone release. He just comes by himself, which is kind of sad because that's pretty much how a lot of the more recent releases have been. But I'm not gonna beat a dead horse. Yeah, it doesn't come with the beam effect, so that's unfortunate. So while this reissue is lacking in the accessory department, you have to ask yourself this. Is it really worth it? Honestly, if you already have the first edition release, you really don't have to pick this one up. It's kind of a no-brainer. You don't need this one. However, for those of you who are looking to save a quick buck, you might be able to find this reissue for a lot cheaper than you would the first edition secondhand. However, I will make a note here. Please, if you are looking to pick this one up off a seller, ask the seller for a picture of the eyes from the front, straight on with a bright light setting, so that you can judge for yourself whether or not it's a good reissue or not. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this quick review of the reissue of the 1994 Godzilla from SH Monster Arts. It's been a long time coming. I know I promised this video way back in the day when I first did the original, but hey, here it is for you guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This was one of the Instagram poll victories that those of you who voted for it, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button. Do let me know in the comments what you think about it, and would you like to see a reissue with an updated sculpt similar to the Rebirth version and similar paint job to this one? Do let me know in the comments. Share the video if you haven't already, and don't forget to subscribe. And if you are, hit that little bell icon so you're up to date with any future video uploads. Well, end card's here. So if you see any more videos here that might suit your fancy, feel free to click on them and check them out. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching. See you all soon.